Hi everybody, and welcome back to The Quiet Grind. I'm Charlie. Today I want to talk about something that's, shaped my life more than almost anything else, and that's fatherhood. Now, before I begin, I want to say, I am not a child psychologist, I am not a parenting expert, I've never taken university courses regarding child development or child psychology or anything of the like. I'm not here to tell people how they should raise their children. Far from it. That's not up to me. In other areas of life, yes, such as the world of dogs, cooking, I have formal training and qualifications. But I will say, parenting is not one of those areas. Everything I'm about to share today comes from my own experience, making mistakes, learning from them, and trying to become a better father today than I was the previous day. If something I say today in this video helps another parent or simply gives somebody something to think about, then this episode has done exactly what I hoped it would do. I became a father on September 13th, 2000. Well, okay, that's not entirely accurate. I became a father long before that. However, I think that is maybe a story for another day. So, for today's episode, we'll begin on September 13th, 2000. Looking back now, I thought being a parent was going to be about teaching your kids. I never imagined that they'd end up teaching me just as much. One of my favorite memories comes from when my two older children were very little. They, myself, their mom, were walking through the mall, and my two children are in a shopping cart, and we're moving along, and from the opposite direction towards us, a black gentleman's approaching. When he got within, 8 to 10 feet of us, I'd say, my oldest of the two, my daughter, excitedly, like children do, says, "Mom, Dad, look at the chocolate man." Well, we couldn't help but laugh a little bit, right? And by the time the gap between us and the black gentleman was bridged a little more, I had said to her, "No, sweetheart, he is not a chocolate man. He is a black man." Well, you know what the gentleman did? He looked down at my daughter, and he smiled, and he kind of chuckled, because he knew there was no hurt or hate. It was simply the innocence of a child coming out. And that memory has stayed with me ever since. It's 20-ish plus years ago, and it stayed with me. And it makes you realize children notice differences. They don't automatically come into the world hating people because they may be different. That's one reason why, besides just the enjoyment of reading classic literature and getting my little boy into that, that's one reason why we read classic books together. Recently we completed Jerry of the Islands by Jack London, and we're now on Michael, brother of Jerry, the next in the little series, I'll call it. And such books, I find, give us opportunities to talk about history, kindness, And, you know, understanding people who may be different from ourselves. I'm going to talk about a lesson learned about patience. Now, before I go on, I'm not perfect, okay? I never will be, never will claim to be. But the next lesson came in a fast food restaurant. My two older children, very young, myself, their mother, and their new little sister, just a baby at the time, we were at a fast food restaurant. That's where the lesson came into play. And our plan was to go to the mall after, do some shopping and the like. Now, we were all finished, and my two older children wouldn't come out, no matter how much I tried to coax them to come out from under the table playing. Well, I simply said, well, we can't go to the mall now, can we, if you won't come out from under the table? And then they came out. There was an older couple in the booth next to us, and as we're walking by, the older gentleman nodded at me and he said, "You're very patient. That is so good to see." And I said something to him, like, that was many years ago, right? So I said something to him, the fact that, well, I thanked him, and I said, you know, thank you so much. You know, I'm not perfect, but I try. And I've never forgotten that moment. It reminded me that calm leadership quite often goes further than anger or frustration. One thing that fatherhood had taught me very quickly is children don't just hear what we say, they see what we do. They see how we treat other people, how we react to stress, how we respond when things don't go exactly our way or whatnot. So whether we realize it or not, I found we're teaching them every single day. So, you know, I'm going to go to another lesson learned and another thing, well, I guess relates to it, that's molded me. A couple years ago, where that lesson, patience, can be how I've, how do I say this? Applied it as of what I've learned about patience, right? A couple of years ago, my wife, my fourth child, our little boy, a friend and their children were at a park together. And our little boy and the friend's children, they were off in the distance playing at the other end of the park. And there was a woman there, and she had a big rock in her, and she's making a motion like she was going to throw it. My wife said, "What is she doing?" And I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to wait to see. I rushed over there naturally, understandably, and I didn't lose my temper. I just was as calm as I could be while being firm. And obviously, when I started speaking, the woman knew of my presence, right? I said something such as, "What's going on here? Are we throwing rocks over here?" And then I looked at the lady, looked her in the eye, and I said, "Nobody's going to be throwing rocks at anybody, now are they?" Then I said something to the fact of, or to the effect of, "Come on, kids, let's go play at the other end of the park." So fatherhood has taught me that you don't necessarily have to be aggressive to protect children. Sometimes that calm confidence can be the better approach. One lesson I've been thinking about over time and thinking about a lot lately is this. It's basically that sometimes all a child needs is even one person to believe in them. There's a young boy that we've crossed paths with, and we cross paths with from time to time, and he seems to have a hard time fitting in, a hard time being accepted by the other children. And my little boy is one of those children that has a hard time accepting him. And the boy, yeah, he may be a bit of a bully. He's known to be a bully. But I'm not going to necessarily hold that against him. He is a child, although I won't make excuses for bullying. Okay? But, so I don't know why, and I won't pretend to know why this is how it is. But I ran across my little boy. I ran it by him, and I said, hear me out, and I told him about what I'm about to say to you now. And my little boy said, okay. What I was thinking was, with his parents' permission, of course, and if he'll accept it, inviting him over to have homemade spaghetti and meatballs, on the condition that he and my son treat each other with kindness and respect, then and moving forward. Because then maybe the other children can see that, and maybe it can have a good ripple effect, and that's what I'm thinking. Maybe nothing changes. Maybe everything changes. Honestly, don't know, but I'd rather try to offer some kindness than to just assume the worst and just give up. I feel that maybe all it takes is one person to believe in a child, to see something in them. So on being different, my niece said a couple things to me that have stayed with me. And I'm going to give a shout out to you, T. You know who you are. You're a good kid. Uncle Charlie loves you. One thing that she said to me was, there's nobody quite like you. The next thing she said to me prior, and it's what really stuck with me. She said to me, Uncle Charlie, you have a unique and big personality that not everyone can understand and not everyone can handle. And that made me smile, it really did. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's true for a lot of people. And I guess the lesson I take from it is, different doesn't automatically mean bad. It can simply mean being misunderstood. Fatherhood taught me to slow down and to try to understand before I assess someone, whether an adult or children. One of my favorite parts is, and I'm referencing reading books with my little boy again, of reading, is not just about reading the story, but it's about talking afterwards, asking questions, thinking about history, about kindness, about courage. And you know what? Those quiet moments, those are the ones I will always treasure. Fatherhood has not made me perfect. Far from it. I've made mistakes, and likely I will make more. If there's one thing being a dad has shown me, is that kids don't only grow because of us, but we actually grow because of them. At least that's what I found. And I find they challenge us. They challenge us to be humble. They remind us to laugh. They remind us to be patient. And if we're paying attention, They make us better people. These are simply lessons that I personally learned along the way. What lessons have children taught you? I would love to hear your story in the comments. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I'm Charlie, and this has been The Quiet Grind, built in silence. Thanks for coming out.